No days off. Welcome to the Weekend Warriors Week 11 edition of the show. The commish is traveling, and this is going to be an early pod this week. That's right. I'm recording Tuesday night. Have a little bit of a crazy week. I'll be back, boots in the ground for Thursday night football back in the home state of New Jersey. But in the meantime, no days off here, guys. Welcome to a Week 11 edition of the pod. The commish is on fire right now, just with his picks that he's spitting out on this pod. I was losing people a lot of money early this season, but now the script has flipped. And if you remember, I think like 5 or 6 weeks ago, I said at the end of the season, I'm going to have a bad record, but I hope I can go on a run and just bring it back closer to 500. And those bards will sing songs of the run that I went on towards the second half of the season to win people money. So let's jump into a recap. So a recap real quick. I had the Panthers plus 3.5 cash Thursday night football. I had Dallas minus 16.5. I also said take the team total. It was 27.5. They scored 49. I wish I would have put some more sauce on that. I wish I would have done a ladder play there and just taken the over in increments, but a winner is a winner. 2-0 on the pod, 4-0 in my last 4 picks given out on the pod, 3-0 in my last 3 Thursday night picks given out on the pod, 5-1 in my last 6 overall picks given out on the pod. Roll with me. For you guys that know, when I gamble, I get hot and I get ice cold. Right now, I'm hot. It could cool off as soon as today. It could cool off in 2 weeks. Jump on the train before I fizzle out. Now, my fantasy picks. Pearson hurt me. I would have gone 5-0, but Kevin with the upset over Pearson, taking him down. I went 4-1. I was correct with Dean over Brett. Dean, high score of the week. A little tidbit from Brett, a little nugget. He said that Dean has been the high score of the week twice, and both times he's played Brett. So a little nugget there. That sucks to be Brett. Dean likes to play against Brett. I had Terry over Jake in a matchup that I said it was going to be a blowout, and it pretty much was. Terry with a huge week. And then I had Malone over Otley, and Otley has lost 6 in a row now. We'll get to that in a second. And then I had myself over Chris. Low scoring affair, but I was able to edge him. Mostly thanks to Dak Prescott, who scored half my points. Shout out Cowboys. Dean, high score of the week, his second time this season. $50 so far accumulated for Dean for high scores of the week. Total record for fantasy picks, 37-13 after a 4-1 week. Amazing record, probably the best ever for the commish. And I'm 8-12 in my NFL picks. That didn't sound as good as the streak that I had mentioned earlier. But heading into week 11. So let's stop here and pause for week 11 because I have some power rankings that I'm going to share with the team. And this was sent by Otley. And he said, hey, the pod's getting a little stale. Fatherhood's killing the pod. No special guests. You got Pearson leaving. All you guys becoming dads. But thank you, Otley, for participating in the content and giving me something to talk about a little different this week. And power rankings. So you're going to have these and you can go through them. But the things that stood out to me the most, Dean and Terry. So I'm first with 28 overall score. Dean and Terry both with 26.5. And they have a nice margin there ahead of Jake, who's at 21. So 8-2 for me, 7-3 for Dean and Terry, 6-4 for Jake. And then it's Chris T and Malone, pretty much neck and neck at 5-5. And then you have Brett at 4-6. Otley 6 in a row at 3-7. Pearson 5 in a row at 3-7. And then Kev coming off his win, he's at 2-8. So the thing that stood out to me the most in the power rankings, you have 2 teams on the outside of the playoffs right now. So right now, if the season ended today, it would be me, Terry, Dean, and Jake. the two teams that are on the outside looking in, and that doesn't mean the rest of the teams are eliminated, but the two that are closest knocking on the door right now is the champion Boulogne and Chris, the two who played in the championship last year together. And the thing that stuck out to me the most is Boulogne has the hardest strength of schedule remaining, according to Otley's power rankings. He's got Brett, Terry, Dean, Jake, and Tyler. And Chris has the easiest strength of schedule it's just night and day. Kevin, Pearson, Jake, Otley, Brett. So it's interesting, the teams that are in the 4 spot, Jake specifically, and then and Terry and Dean and myself, no one's safe. But Jake especially, rooting for Boulogne and Chris T to lose. And you can see maybe he should focus more on Chris because he's got an easy schedule. Boulogne, you're going to have to slay some dragons here at the end of the season if you want to make the playoffs. Can't talk about Fab or waiver wire yet because I'm recording before that happens. But let's jump into the Week 11 predictions. And we're going to start with Thursday Night Football because it's been working. I'll be honest with you. I've had a good read on these Thursday night games in prior weeks. I don't have a good read this week. I think Baltimore coming off a loss should want to get back in the win column. But Cincinnati had a tough loss too. Probably not going to have T. Higgins. I like over 46. Cincinnati couldn't stop anybody. 150 rushing yards to Devin Singletary. The Ravens totally imploded, let the Browns back in that game. I think these teams will score points. I think they'll hit that over. I think it's a high over for these teams. And I'm willing to take a shot there over 46. So we'll get into my other pick later. Let's see if the Thursday Night King can continue his streak. But going into the matchups. First matchup, Jake and Pearson. And Jake's season I feel like he's on a seesaw. A couple weeks ago, tough loss. And then he self-proclaimed a must-win against Kev, blew him out. Comes back last week without a bunch of his players on bye against Terry. Kind of in his head said it was a must-win, but probably knew, with Terry back to full strength, it was going to be tough. Terry demolishes him. But now Jake back on the other side of the seesaw with, Connor back and healthy, Tyreek off a bye. Keenan Allen coming off a monster game, Mostert off a bye. He's got some guys, some reinforcements here in Week 11, and he's playing an inferior opponent right now in Pearson, who his running backs, man, I picked Pearson a couple weeks ago. Rachaad White and Derrick Henry, two good players. Garrett Wilson's been a lot better. Hal's been putting up numbers. Judy not getting it done. James Cook has a little bit of a fumbling problem. But Pearson has good players. He should have beat Kev last week. I don't know how Kev won with the lineup that he did, but shout out to Kevin without Jalen Hurts, without Devonta Smith for getting that done. Jake's on the seesaw. I think he gets it done this week against Pearson. He needs it. He needs to re-solidify himself. I mean, about a month ago, we were saying he was the best team in the league. And I still think with the firepower that he has, Lamar has taken a step down, and his running backs. He got Aaron Jones. He hasn't done a whole lot. His running backs are a little bit of a weakness, and Devontae still hasn't gotten it going. Hasn't scored a touchdown now since week 3. So I think he has the players and the guts to bounce back and be a force down the stretch. He needs a statement win this week against Pearson. I think he gets it. Moving on to the next matchup, another one that I think is pretty easy. Kevin coming off a huge win, probably a Super Bowl, playing against his son in Pearson. Gets Hurts back. Jahmyr Gibbs finally looks like a stud. I have him in another league. He's playing well. Hurts and Devonta Smith back in that shootout against Kansas City. But this is still a weak lineup. You got London and Pitts on bye. You're putting in guys like A.J. Dillon. Michael Gallup caught a touchdown last week. Christian Kirk is solid, but, I just don't see a lot of points being scored on this side. Chris T gets Tua back. Jacobs and Hall have been solid. Waddle back from bye. And Travis Kelce back from bye. He's the biggest piece for him. We just mentioned the strength of schedule for Chris. He had to play me last week. It was a tough one. Now he gets Kevin and Pearson. If he wants a chance to make the playoffs, he needs to take care of business against these teams. I think he gets it done against Kevin this week. I'm picking him to win, Chris to move to 6-5 and stay on the guys in the playoffs butts heading into week 12. All right, so there were two easy ones. Now I have maybe two of the more difficult matchups I've picked all season. I'm not blowing smoke. A matchup in Brett versus Valone, and we mentioned the schedule for Valone, and I think this is must win for both teams. I mean, it's getting down to the wire now. There are a bunch of weeks left, but especially for Brett, 4-6, a chance to leapfrog a guy ahead of him after a tough matchup against Dean. Brett's team looks way better than it did a few weeks ago. CJ Stroud, the catalyst there. Saquon's horrible. But he's getting the ball. Hold on, I lost my path here. Excuse me. And he's playing Washington. That was what I was about to say. This is his best chance of being in a game. I can't believe Washington's 10-point favorites. That's insane. But Tank Dell, Cup now with Stafford supposed to be back, a very solid team. Kittle even scoring points in back-to-back games. 21.5, 21.5, and 9.5 in his last three. He's a tight end 4 on the season. Now, Valone hates Tony Pollard. He's been terrible. Justin Herbert, though, he's a little bit on the seesaw. Let's see what he scored 2 weeks ago. He scored 3. This past week, 32. The week prior to that, 23. So he's a little bit on the seesaw. At Green Bay, not the best matchup. Ford's been good. Jamar dealing with that backache in this shootout game that I'm predicting on Thursday night. I think could get Valone off to a hot start. T. McBee, Trey McBride, just amazing. Now he's got Kyler. He could be a huge second half movement here for Valone. Brian Robinson playing good in a good matchup against the Giants. This is going to be a very close matchup, and I've gone back and forth on this a few times as I've done my rankings. Blindly right now, before I went back to my rankings, I was going to say I really like Valone, and I think he's going to take care of business. My notes say Brett, and my notes have been good. I'm going to pick Brett over Valone here in week 11. Valone's been knocking on the door, trying to get the magic back from last season. He's like trudging through the mud. He's kind of said it's been a slog, and I think Brett bests him here, and Brett trying to pull the underdog story of the century and try to make the playoffs after a slow start. Taking Brett over Valone. Moving on to the easily the matchup of the week, maybe the matchup of the season, definitely top 3. Terry versus Dean. Joe Cool has a little lamb versus Sunday Shenanigans. We were saying some things about Terry's team maybe being on the downslope, and he's just completely answered. Obviously, Allen and the Bills are having problems, but he will be a great fantasy quarterback. Tough matchup against the Jets. CMC, don't need to say anything. Ken Walker Jr. has a big play waiting to happen. Amon-Ra, Debo, Addison's been fine with Dobbs. Maybe Jefferson's back, but I think Addison will still get his. And then Montgomery, even with Gibbs being involved, they're going to have a two-headed monster. So just a really strong team there from Terry. Tied in the power rankings with Dean at 26.5 each on your scorecard, which you'll have when you watch this video. Please check page number 1 down on the right side. Dean, Burrow in that matchup that I think is going to be a shootout. I know the Ravens defense is good, but I think he will get it done with or without T. Higgins. ETN coming off a bad week, Swift off a bye, and Austin Eckler. We've talked about these 3 running backs all season. CeeDee Lamb on another planet right now with Dak Prescott. Lamb's on Mars, Prescott's on Venus. Lamb 3 straight games with 10 and 150, insane numbers. And then Dean has a bunch of other wide receivers that he can play. He's got Achane potentially coming off of IR. He's got Keaton Mitchell, who's been good. Noah Brown. Can I just give my dad a round of applause? Picks up Noah Brown, has Collins out, plays him over Chris Godwin, all these other guys. Sometimes you just pull the right strings. Great call by Dean. He had a huge game, and it was part of the reason why he was high score of the week last week. All right, let me see what I have written down. I really think this is going to be a good matchup. I think what it comes down to for me, you do have Pittman on bye, Achane, little uncertainty. Maybe Dean has the luxury of keeping him on his bench. When does the Lamb train slow down? Amon-Ra just been very consistent. I'm taking Terry. The projection in this game, and I know it's Tuesday, 127.5 to 127.4. This matchup can truly go either way. I've shown a lot of love to both these teams all season. I think this could be the first round matchup in the playoffs in a few weeks. But I'm taking Terry. I think it's going to be close. I give the edge to CMC, and I think maybe Allen, even against a tough defense, has a good week. And Montgomery and St. Brown both playing the Bears. Just really, really good matchup there. So moving on to the last matchup, and I'm going to give my Thursday night pick. Before I'm taking Jacksonville minus 6.5. Part of my strategy, if you guys follow me at all, which you do, you're watching my pod, is take the team that looked the worst last week. They got embarrassed by San Francisco. I'm not sold. I know Will Levis looked good in his first game. Hasn't been great since. Minus 6.5 is a lot of points in a division matchup. I think they know something. I'm taking Jacksonville and laying the points. That's my pick. Now, this matchup, oddly, I really wanted to put this on the matchup of the week. I mean, me and you do. We're a rivalry, going back, but you're just 6 in a row losses. And I'm probably going to jinx it right now, but, it's just not a good season for you. You're trying your best. You might have Jefferson back. That was a great trade for you. Cook hasn't done much, and Watson's been absolutely terrible. So maybe Jefferson can reinvigorate your team. If you go on a run, you still could make the playoffs. You're not mathematically eliminated. I'm without Alvin Kamara, but I am going to get Puka back off a bye and A.J. Brown off a bye. Diggs coming off a down week. Javonte really looking like that second half workhorse I was hoping that he would. And Dak Prescott, he's just on fire right now. Unbelievable pickup. Very lucky. Didn't think he'd look like this, but I will take it. How can Otley win? No Jonathan Taylor, no Bijan Robinson. That helps me this week. But, Jefferson may be coming back. Jake Ferguson potentially can steal some points from Dak Prescott. And I think Patrick Mahomes in this potential shootout against the Eagles, that was my other honorable mention. I really like the over in that game. I think those teams are going to score a lot of points. Offenses normally outweigh good defenses. If those teams, the ball can bounce a couple ways early, I think that gets over easily. But that scares me. That Mahomes matchup scares me. But I think that Otley's team they lost 6 in a row. He doesn't have Jonathan Taylor and Bijan. I need to win this game. I need to take advantage of his bye week issues, and I need to try and stay atop the standings. I'm predicting Otley to lose his 7th in a row, and myself to win my 5th in a row. Dean also on a 5-game win streak. Shout out. So listen, guys, the commish doesn't sleep. I am the content king. As we get around the holidays, we will have a special guest before the playoffs start, and then the playoffs will be fun. We have a couple more weeks. We have 5 more regular season weeks, so don't get ahead of yourself. But appreciate it, guys. Listen, good luck. Please bet with me. I want you guys to win money. I want you to be prosperous. Let's go. Week 11. Good luck.